Hello and welcome to this episode of Timeless Topics. This is part one in a two-part series on the importance of reciprocity, community, and self-awareness. In this episode, we discuss everything from emotional labor and allostatic load to curiosity and giving ourselves and each other grace. We're so excited you're back with us, and let's go ahead and jump into the conversation. I don't think up until now, I think we've been a little spicy, but like white people spicy. We haven't gotten to like spice, you know what I mean?
I love it.
So like, I think we're probably okay. It's also one of those like damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? Because you want to fix the system, but then you feel like if I try, I'm going to be taken out of the system and then who wins?
Yeah.
Right? But if I do this anticipatory compliance, no one's winning either. So it's like, oh, and that's when you really just realize that the system is rigged and you're not meant to win.
Yeah.
And that is the really demoralizing part of it sometimes.
Yeah. Right. Well, and it's so funny that you said white people spicy, because I think about that a lot. Because I've had conversations with some of my peers that we can say the exact same thing with the exact same tone. Yeah. Right. And I'm the one that gets called on the carpet for it. Right. And it when we're talking about this concept of, again, just perception, that some of these interactions that we have with colleagues, with peers, for example, thinking of other specialties, other disciplines, other whatever, and how sometimes people put them down in a way to drive them either further into the ground. And we say all of these negative things about them so that others then start believing that that is exactly who they are, when that's really not who they are. But let's just say they don't know how to do this. They don't understand this. They're not as smart as, they don't have the same degree, right? And eventually over time, it becomes this sense of discrimination, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that sometimes what we see is people who historically have not been faced with that, but are now faced with it from a different way, don't know how to respond. Yeah. So they respond in the way they have to everything, right? I'm immediately going to speak up. I'm going to respond with emotion. I'm going to whatever. Whereas I stop and I think about everything that I say, because I don't want it to be perceived in a way different from what I'm intending.
Right.
Which contributes to some of the emotional fatigue, right? I know that we've talked about this before, and we were kind of looking for this evidence and this literature, but this aspect of constant tired, right? Because I'm having to stop. I'm having to wear this on my shoulders all the time. I'm having to present this facade, right? It has to contribute to allostatic stress because it is this constant, right? And so it just, and when I was sharing this with someone, they were like, huh, I hadn't thought of it that way. I was like, of course not, because you've not had to, right? And again, this may just be my perception, but it's like, yeah, it was intriguing to me. Yeah, it's intriguing.
Well, so the mental and emotional labor of it all, right? Which I think we're doubly, for like the three of us, I think it's pretty safe to say we identify as female, right? And then we live in a mostly patriarchal society. And so then you have all this like all the different isms and identities, that the intersectionality of it, that then ultimately leads to a female driven field, right? That then I'm still having to hold water and be careful and be conscious and constantly emotionally regulating other people around me to maintain safety. But when you think of it from the intersection of somebody that identifies from a different racial background or different sexual identity or sexual preference or whatever, however you want to slice it, right? There's that much extra benefit to have to serve this heteronormative field, right? Of I've got to hold space for all of this and I can't rock the boat too much because I'll be the one that goes down for it, even though somebody else might be more vocal or more turbulent in their rocking of the boat. And It's not that we don't need the boat to be rocked because we do, but we
Yeah.
need it to be done from a place of sustainability and not just flash in the pan, let me just make this about me and center the like white feminist experience about it, when really we need to look at this as how can we get to greater benefits for everyone on the globe. And that means that my emotional needs aren't the ones that have to be met first.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making me think of a story that you shared earlier in the day with, sometimes some of our colleagues just feel overwhelmed by the burden of the ever expanding view of what is trauma-informed developmental care all about. And it can feel really expansive. It can feel really overwhelming. Um, and I don't want to go there. And because of my orientation and my place in society, I don't have to go there. I can choose how I will navigate the world that I choose to live in. Whereas other people who may have, different ethnic backgrounds, different language dynamics, different sexual and racial orientations, that choice is not even on the table for these folks. And how do we help folks begin to realize the responsibility that we have in in shifting that and in expanding the choices that are available to other people, on the planet, in the sphere, whether it's in the NICU or whether it's at the supermarket, you know what I mean? Like all the different places where some of these endemic, is that the right word? Endemic biases, they're baked into our culture. And sometimes you don't even realize that they're there because it doesn't affect you, right, in a direct way. And then when you kind of get confronted with it, it feels like a hot potato, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to
Mhm.
stay over here in my comfort zone. And then you really just nobody gets helped, right? You perpetuate this myth, particularly in our field that is female dominated. You perpetuate this kind of subservient perspective or perception, or I don't know what the right word is, of the role. And then that just reinforces the dominant, but the dominant paradigm.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And then if you think about how that plays out, even just provider to provider, right? Like nurse to nurse, nurse to provider, nurse to NP, like whoever the provider is, right? When you're thinking about that, now think about the intersection for families, right? And they're showing up with their lived experience and trying to be the best parent they can be in the traumatic context of the NICU, but then we're not even facilitating them being able to be the best person they can be.
Yeah.
And we're so quick to say, oh, there's something wrong with them. That crazy mom over there in bed five, or, whatever it is, when really we're not allowing people space for humanity to
Yeah.
say that, you know what, this is not a place where I expect somebody to show up in societal norms because this is not a normal situation. Now, we can't condone violence and really poor behavior, right? But that is a separate context and often a straw man argument used here of like, oh, so we're just going to tolerate people throwing charts. Even if units have charts anymore with EMRs, they don't do that. But your girl grew up on paper, so throwing charts was a thing. But like,
Yeah.
no, I'm not going to tolerate that. That is also not okay because everyone's physical safety should be something that we could at minimum secure in the NICU, right? But that doesn't mean that there isn't space to challenge ourselves, to hold ourselves accountable to being able to facilitate safety for families and ourselves alike. Because like I know Tracey had mentioned in one of the earlier episodes about, sometimes you're with an emergent situation with the provider and they're short. And you're like, oh, are they just a mean person? Are they a bad person? Or, she did have trouble with getting her kid to go to bed last night and they've been having financial stuff and there's been some issues in there and her mom is sick and all those other context of existence that you're like, you know what? I'm going to give her some grace here and come back and check in on the person outside of this context while I'm still going to hold you accountable for like, hey girl, you were a little short. Why?
Yeah.
But I'm going to come in from a place of empathy rather than accusation or finality, right? Or so you don't get labeled as the mean attending or the mean NP or whatever it is, right? But you have to be able to see someone else's experience to be able to even frame the world in that way.
Well, it has to be reciprocated too. I mean,
Yes.
if I'm the one that's always doing that, you know, where's my grace and space? And I'm not doing it, because I want something back, but it should just be an is thing, right? I mean, you had mentioned about, treating someone like another human being, but I think particularly in the situation that we're in now, I think it's becoming more and more um aware, or no, apparent maybe, that we don't treat each other like fellow human beings, and how do we bridge that? I mean, the example you just gave was a beautiful example of how to role model this. But just because you're role modeling it so expertly doesn't mean anybody is picking up the message, picking up the lesson. And yeah, and so it just feels like incredibly out of balance.
That is that is the bad part, right?
Yeah,
One, that we don't know how to give each other grace. And I think part of that starts with we don't know how to give ourselves grace, right? And it is easy enough to label someone else when you've already labeled yourself.
yeah,
And we're so quick to do that. We're our own worst enemies, right? And so we're going to put ourselves down. So then it's easy to do it to somebody else. Because if you can do it to your own self,
yeah.
the one person that you are supposed to love, how easy is it to do to someone else? And once you put that label on somebody,
Oof.
man, it's like a target on their back, right? Like it's hard to get that
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
And I don't, again, Mary, I don't quite know how to get that across to people.
right.
And I know that I'm just as guilty as everybody else.
Yeah,
It's just yeah, it's just a hard thing to do. I mean, it makes you sad when you really stop and think about it.
yeah,
And you think of the way that we treat each other
yeah,
and how it has gotten to this point that you don't know who you can trust,
yeah,
who really has your back.
yeah.
And so you just put this shell up around yourself, which also has to contribute to some of this, right? Because there's this sense of I've got to protect myself at
Mhm.
all times.
By design, though, it feels like, I mean, the more I can keep everybody separated from each other, that keeps me, if I'm the dominant paradigm, that keeps me safe, that keeps me in power. And if I can
And
keep you second guessing yourself, woo, and so it's really part of that socialization
mhm.
of all of us. And then you get so used to it because this is what it is, right? It is an is thing. I don't know anything different. It doesn't feel 100% right. I mean, but when you're a kid, your whole mission is to attach. And you want to attach to your parents, and they've been reared in a certain way, and it's this really, is it a negative feedback loop? That's kind of like what it, I don't know if that's the right exemplar of this, but that, you just keep raising these people that are raised to feel insecure, to, self-doubt. And it's not that that doesn't just play out in this, slice of my life, but it spans all the different slices of my life.
Yeah, this concept that rugged individualism is the way out of this is one of the biggest misnomers we've ever had put on society, right? Because community is the way out of this. Empathy is the way out of this. Connecting with another person, so much so that you can build a culture of accountability and reciprocity, right? Reciprocity is one of my absolute favorite words, like ever, because without it, you have no relationship. If
Yeah,
things are not reciprocal and received, it is, you have no community, you have no relationship. All of this is a farce, right? It's like social media happy. Let me put you on there and soft launch you on my Instagram stories. And that's going to make it feel like we have something tangible. But you don't if there is no reciprocal, like, connection to another human being. And that's true whether you're talking about a romantic relationship, a professional relationship, a friendship, parent to child. Like, it has to be message sent, message received, message acted on,
yeah,
right? It's like closed loop communication, like NRP, right? It's like being able to actually go in and say, I heard you. I don't know how to fix this, but I'm going to hold space for you. And together we're going to figure this out. Rather than going, wow, that must suck.
yeah.
Oh, geez, that's pretty terrible. I don't have that problem though. So good luck to you. which is a lot of what we do.
You're describing serve and return. You know,
Yeah.
that the Harvard website, the developing child, and they
Yeah.
talk about that's just how when you were describing it, I hadn't really thought of it outside of the context of, a brand new baby, getting the cues and giving the cues to the parent and the parent reciprocating with that. But that is who we are. But again, we get wrenched from that dyadic rapport. And then you kind of, set sail and never get reconnected. And you're right, social media, all of those other devices. I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Right.
There may be some good in there, but it's been so corrupted because of this pervasive, epidemic of divisiveness that it's really hard to have any serve and return. It's serve and react, you know, um, it's crazy.
But like it makes me think of those earlier discussions that we had, like where Tracy and I kept identifying this concept of circle time, right?
Yeah.
And how like I've worked with a lot of people that I do not align with as a person, right? Politically, spiritually, morally, sometimes. Like I don't align with most people. I am a bleeding heart liberal if there ever was one. But but that didn't mean I couldn't connect with people in a way that was
Yes.
appropriately reciprocal for the relationship in which we had, right? Like, I don't need to be best friends with everybody that I work with. We don't need to go out and get dinner and drinks and all the things, but we do need to navigate this shared traumatic experience and like very emotionally heavy environment of the NICU, no matter how you slice it, right? Together in some sense. I remember I worked with somebody where I was literally like, you know what? I'm pretty sure we don't agree with literally anything. I think somebody could ask us every question and we would have an opposing view, but I'd code with you in a heartbeat
Mhm.
because I know you know how to do that well. And we can agree on how to do NRP, right? We might not agree on anything else, but we got that. And she laughed and she goes, you know what? You're probably right. Because we were known for being a little divisive with each other because we were so different. But we also were, if you wanted to code, you wanted us on your team because we knew what we were doing, right? And we could lay differences aside to be able to accomplish that shared goal. But I think that gets harder and harder to do the more fear that is put into every relationship because you don't know who to trust.
Right.
You don't know, can I say this to you? Is it going to end up out of context somewhere on the internet or somewhere else?
Right.
And it is really just like the undoing of like community and relationships in these settings when really you need them to thrive. We're kind of relegating everybody to just survive through their shifts.
So you said that you all didn't agree on anything, but I think that's the basis that we go back to, is that at least in the NICU, we all agree on one thing, that we want the best for those babies and their families,
Yes.
right? And I think if we could remember that component, I agree with you. You don't have to like me, but you will respect me, and
Yes.
I will respect you, right? We can have a completely different opinion about even what color the sun is. As long as you respect when I say it's blue and you say, no, it's purple. Cool. It may be purple through your glasses, through my glasses, it's blue. At the end of the day, I don't want to harm you because you think it's purple. I just say, you know what, Jessi, not so bright. She think it's purple, right? And we move on.
Yeah.
Life is good.
Yeah.
But when we're coding that baby, it doesn't matter what color the sun is. What matters is that we get that baby back
Yeah.
and that we get that baby stable to hand off to his family. And if we could stand on that foundation,
Hmm.
right? And going back to the conversation of reciprocity, if we could just share with each other and own it, accept it. Again, I don't have to like it. Jessi told me that I was a mean witch today. Okay, that was Jessi's perception of me. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't, I don't know. But I'm gonna move on because I accept that, right? That was not my intent. I am sorry if that's how it came across.
Yeah.
If it was my intent, yep, that was my intent. And I mean, like we have to own these things, but then that means that we have to be mature enough, strong enough, insightful enough to accept when someone tells us something that is not so positive.
Hmm. But you captured it, Tracy. It's about respect. And
Mhm.
I think that's really been swept under the carpet. I think that there isn't any respect. I mean, people are now blind to the humanity, I think, of each other. And we don't, I mean, saying the collective we, we don't know how to have disagreements. We don't know how to hold respectful discourse. People misinterpret, I think, what does it mean to debate? To debate is to have a respectful discourse. It's not to intimidate or bully or humiliate someone else. That's not a debate. That is rhetorical violence. And to really, kind of be able to start to see we have the skills. We can do this. But again, Jess, you brought this up too. There's such a pervasive aura of fear and uncertainty. I mean, I start thinking about those principles of trauma-informed care. What are the things that help me stay regulated? Feeling safe, feeling like I can trust folks or the situation, having healthy relationships and interactions. Maybe I can't have them with everybody, but knowing that there is some safe place where I can have that. Feeling empowered and having a voice, not just some people get free speech, but we all have free speech. Um, and I can agree to disagree, and we call it a day kind of a thing. And then just that, equity and anti-bias efforts, to really just continuously be curious. There was this really cool thing. I'm digressing a little bit, but I saw it on was it the Instagram or maybe the TikTok? I forget. And it was there was some big event over at the Vatican. I think it's the Pope's birthday or something. And Pharrell was one of the host people, and he was speaking just such beautiful healing language, and he talked about, that there is racial tension. There are ethnic and ethnic disparities. But instead of like coming at that with the hate, the aggression, and all those other kinds of things, can we try and start to shift to curiosity, and how healing that can be in that journey? But you do, I mean, he didn't say this, but as I'm saying this, I'm realizing, when you do that, though, you could think that you're giving up some perceived power. But what is it at the end of the day? Is it really power, or is it fear masking as power?
Yeah, I think
You
it's
know,
hard because we definitely want to agree to disagree a lot, but then sometimes I think we've gotten to this huge place where we can agree to disagree on a lot of things, but we're not going to agree to disagree on things like racism, right? So like you have these big issues that are really hard to navigate because you're like, but I don't want to agree to disagree with somebody who's actively trying to take
Yes,
my rights away or harm me and mine, right? Um, and it is a delicate balance because one, as my Southern grandmother says, you catch more honey, flies with honey than vinegar, right? So like you do want to bring people in from a perspective, but sometimes you're like, right, but how much can I tolerate? Like I don't remember which one of y'all said it, but earlier, like well, what about me? Am I just supposed to be the punching bag for everything? Like I'm just going to be the only one who can agree to disagree? And no, right? Like there needs to be some, um, well-intended debate on both sides, but I think people have found homes in the polarizing parts of each of these perspectives, no matter what ism or anything you're talking about. And so then they feel very vindicated and validated from their lens. And to be able to spew things that are dehumanizing to people without really what feels like consequence, right? And you're like, the minimum consequence I could have is to hold you accountable as a neighbor, right? Or as a family member or as a coworker to be like, hey, that was not okay, what you said? But then it's like, oh, so now I can't have opinions? Well, not one's rooted in hate. No, you
I-
can't have those, at least not out loud,
exactly.
without something. But it's really hard to explain to people like, I don't know how to have a respectful conversation with somebody who wants me to not be able to vote or exist,
Right,
right? Like that's hard.
right.
so see, I look at it maybe slightly different, maybe not. Um, So my thought is, you can think whatever you want to think about me. I don't care if you think that I am less than. I don't care if you think that I am beneath the dirt on the bottom of your shoe. As long as you don't try to step on me. As long as you don't try to harm mine. I'm not asking you to be my BFF. I'm not asking you to agree with the fact that I am intelligent enough that I can do whatever it is that I am doing.
Yeah.
You can think that I am an idiot. I don't care what you think, but don't try to harm me because of it.
Right.
Right? Don't try to harm my family because of it.
Mhm.
Right? Because at the end of the day, most of us are just out here trying to live life.
Yeah.
Right? And when it gets to the point that you think that I am less than, that as you mentioned, you can snuff me out, you can whatever, that's when it becomes a problem. But have whatever opinion you want.
Yeah.
Behind closed doors, you can hate me from the bottom of your soul. And I'm okay with that, right?
Yeah.
As long as you don't come at me with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Have whatever thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a nuanced point that I do agree with, right? Like, I don't need you to be on board. I just need you to not be in the way or on my neck, right?
Yes.
Like, you
Yes.
can have whatever flawed opinions you want because I probably have some too, right? Whether we're talking about what
Mhm.
how to cook our steak or whether we're
Hmm.
talking about who gets to vote, right? Like people have different opinions on those things and we're entitled to those. It's what do
Hmm.
you do with that entitlement? Are you actively
Yes.
harming someone or groups of
Yes.
people? That's where I draw the line,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's just so hard because I feel like we're on this like slippery slope where everything is just
Hmm.
fast forwarded, partially because of social media and the instant availability and it's really hard to find people that are willing to just have that form of agree to disagree. You know what I
Right.
mean? I can still call people in. We can still try to change opinions when it's healthy and reciprocated and able to, but I no longer have to worry about how are you going to radicalize somebody else to then take action that could cause me or my community harm, right?
Yeah.
Um, and it just feels very scary right
Hmm.
now with
Oh,
like everything just feels like kindling, and you're just waiting with some kid with a magnifying glass ready to set the whole thing on fire.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
it's terrifying. When we talk about the aspects of trauma-informed care, at least when I'm teaching these concepts to my students and I'm talking about it with them and I'm asking them to give these families grace, and we're talking about recognizing that some of our families are in this trauma state, right? And they are dealing with all of this, and I don't even want to say PTSD, but the kind of things that have happened to them over the years, right? We don't stop and think about the fact that for some of the people that we're trying to teach this to, they're also dealing with their own trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they can't give grace because nobody has given them grace. So, how do we deal with that?
Yeah.
How do we address that, right? Because you almost want to say, "Oh, we all need to go to therapy before we can do this job," but that's not reasonable, right? I mean, it maybe it should be, but how I don't know. How do we address that? How do you talk to your learners about that, your new hires? How do you get it across without reigniting some of their own trauma,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a firm believer that everybody should be assigned a therapist. Like you hit 12, here you go, because I think that there is so much power in self-awareness and really understanding the how behind how you got here. Again, not from a place of judgment or from, oh, my parents were terrible, like, but just understanding that like everybody's got a context. And it's not, you don't have to put it on, you have to wear it on your sleeve, you don't have to put it on a billboard. Nobody needs to know your ACE score. Mine's 7, by the way. But you just need to know it yourself so that you know how that colors your interactions, right? But you have to learn that in a safe place. And asking people do it in the context of a workplace environment is inherently not safe, especially when it's somebody like your mentor or your teacher making you do this. There is inherently a power dynamic there. So you have to, if that conversation is going to be had, there has to be an abundance of work done on that, person's part to try to facilitate safety, knowing that you can't guarantee it. You're not safe just because somebody says you should be, right? And being able to read the room and use your emotional regulation skills, right? To be able to say, hey, this is heavy. Maybe we should shelve this for now. I personally think that those micro moments way heavier than we sometimes think they do, because being able to say, hey, I can't do this. I need to take a break, models like, oh, I'm recognizing this elephant in the room that everybody else feels, but no one else is going to say it. And even though I might not force the words from a place of harm, you know what I mean? I'm not going to name things in a place that doesn't feel safe to do so, but I'm going to recognize like, hey, this is heavy. I think we should pause for a second, and I need to take a deep breath or take a walk or take a breather, because we're about to get into some territory that is inherently very activating, and I don't think we should right now. But not everybody is capable of receiving that, right? You have some people who might hear that and feel, well, she's so sensitive, or why can't we do this? Or everybody's so sensitive these days. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Timeless Topics. We welcome your feedback and suggestions, so please reach out. Our handle on all social media platforms is @TimelessTopicsNICU, and our email address is timelesstopicsnicu@gmail.com. See you next time.